All right, recording in progress. Good evening again, everyone. One thing came to mind too, as the music was playing there during our meditation. Lita, you were just so tapped into spirit. Yeah. And like, this doesn't just happen, right? It comes from years of showing up here and getting grounded. And something inspired you to use your, what's your instrument called? A tongue drum. A tongue drum. Yeah. And I've seen little ones and big ones, and like, what a beautiful tone. That just, I'm not going to stay there for another 45 minutes. Anyway, thank you for letting spirit flow to pick up this instrument, or choose that song, or let the song choose you, and for everyone for letting that music come through each day, each Saturday here. I know, like I said, it doesn't just happen. It's a process. It's creativity. It's working. So today is September 30th, and we are starting our October theme. So we're holding in mind, the theme is called the paradox, which is to be able to hold one idea in mind and hold another thing in mind at the same time, and how that relates to our teaching. So part of the reason we're doing that, right? Because today's Saturday, tomorrow is Sunday. Most people meet church on Sunday. We're meeting on Saturday, so we got to shift one day. So we are in this time warp. It's already October in mind. So welcome to our theme of paradox. Now, this may be a trigger warning. Stop tickling. Okay. Have you ever been tickled, and while squealing in delight, begged for it to stop? Yes. Yes. Right? You ever have a brother or sister or sibling? Yeah. While you may not have known it, you were holding two conflicting at the same time. Somebody's on. I'm just going to mute you for a bit. There we go. So you're holding two conflicting thoughts in mind. It may be easier to stay polarized and just think of the one, but increasingly we are being called to hold two competing, opposing even positions in mind at the same time. Love this quote from our founder, Ernest. The riddle of the universe is a paradox. The question is its own answer. For the mind that asks the question is also the mind that answers it. Like that speaks to this teaching really simply right then and there. How can, and one of the challenges to learning the power that we have as creative beings in the world is to know that we are the macro, we are the allness, we are the everything, and we are also the individualized expression of that one thing. That's a paradox right there. How can it be everything? Wait. Then eventually we breathe in, we hear the music, and we're like, I get it, I feel it. So paradoxes are a natural part of life. They just really are, the more we think about it. The more we embrace this truth, the more we can find solutions to the problems that we have in the world. During the theme of this month, we'll discuss what it means to use what's called Janusian thinking. Learned a new term this week. And develop a paradox mindset, how to live in that space, and how to use our curiosity and our vulnerability to get comfortable outside of our comfort zone. And we also find that the opposite of an absolute truth is not a falsehood. The opposite of an absolute truth is not a falsehood, but another absolute truth. When we believe in oneness. Niels Bohr, the physicist who was involved in the making of the nuclear bomb, said, it is the hallmark of any deep truth that the negation is also a deep truth. We believe in oneness or we don't. So what we realize as we dive into this concept of paradox is that there's really no one way to look at anything. Instead, we have to open ourselves up to the ideas and perspectives at once, to different ideas and perspectives. In The Science of Mind, Ernest Holm reminds us to be open at the top. There's no one path. And one of the ways we can do this is by embracing a paradox mindset. Paradox thinking is a natural part of this teaching. We believe in oneness, right? While we also experience suffering or struggle in the world. Oneness and wholeness require us to embrace seeming opposites. We believe that the finite and infinite are one and the same, and that our mind is that individualized expression. A paradox, again, is the ability to hold two seemingly contradictory ideas at the same time. And you can tell as I was writing this, and Chris, you'll experience it this week. Okay, what really is paradox, and how does it play out in our life? No one said this teaching was easy, but it's beautiful. So the wise sage Bruce Springsteen said exactly this on Instagram. Interestingly enough, as I was preparing this talk, in pops a Springsteen video about paradox. I'm like, okay, you're listening. So Bruce said, you need to be mindful of the fact that a song can be both prideful and critical. My best Bruce Springsteen okay. That a song, and a lot of songs that are people that are creative folks write, have a paradox in it. They can be both prideful, empowering, and also critical at the same time. He talked about how proud he is to live in this country and grateful to live in this country, and that there's much for him to feel critical about in the way democracy and what we call to be freedom unfolds. And that's okay. It can be both and, right? He has a chorus of his song. He has a song called Born in the USA that is an anthem. You've got people at the concert singing, Born in the USA, super prideful. And then you read that, then the next paragraph is about coming home from war and being horribly mistreated and having economic doldrums and a tough way of living. And then the proud anthem of Born in the USA. That song is both and, right? It has both of those aspects. I love that simple example. And thank you, algorithms, for bringing Bruce to me in this way as this talk was created. So the word paradox comes from the Greek para, meaning contrary to, and doxa, meaning opinion. Contrary to, opinion. The Latin term paradoxum then means seemingly absurd, but really true. That's life. In the book, The Atlas of the Heart, Brene Brown defines paradox as the appearance of contradiction between two related components. We keep hearing that. And we find paradoxes everywhere in our world. Light and dark are seeming opposites. Guess what? We can't see dark without light. We can't see light without dark. There has to be that comparison and contrast, right? You've heard the term, you have to spend money to make money, or less is more, or God is consciousness and matter simultaneously, or even the term jumbo shrimp. The human mind is designed basically for either or thinking, right? This is evolutionary by design and was really useful for our ancestors. It's important to be able to tell quickly if movement out of the corner of our eye is the wind blowing the leaves or if it's a tiger about to pounce. So we get to remember that sometimes when we hear something that's contrary to our belief or opinion or whatever, world philosophy, to know that we get to shift from saying either or to have the possibility of both and. We get to move from thinking in black and white linear terms and binary terms like right and wrong, and open ourselves up to a more open, willing, paradoxical mindset. Now, that paradox mindset is the ability to hold those two seemingly opposite ideas at the same time. Now, interestingly enough, we tend to believe that being pulled in opposite directions will cause stress. But studies have shown that as we embrace the tension and step into paradoxical thinking, People are more creative and productive and flexible. And out of that comes inventions, right? So living with our science of mind teaching, right there, it is a paradox mindset. We are constantly pulled in two seemingly opposite directions of seeing oneness and believing oneness, and then seeing and being confronted with suffering and the brokenness of the physical world. But that mindset then gives us the freedom to hold those in our minds without having to solve the problem. In fact, by embracing the paradox, we realize there's no problem to solve at all. You know, when a practitioner, when a teacher, someone who believes in this faith, goes into the moment of prayer, the first thing we do is align with the fact that we know that there's only one, and that we can speak our word from that place of one. And then, while not denying the condition that we may see in the world, could be a healing, prosperity, hurt heart, we can turn from that and know that beneath it all is that same oneness. It's unbroken. We know that beneath the outpicturing in our life of suffering or disagreement, that there is a place that was never touched and never will be touched by those outward experiences of the world. Psychiatrist Albert Rothenberg coined the term Janusian thinking, J-N-U-S. And it's to describe the paradox mindset. Janus was the Roman god of transitions, duality, time, beginnings and endings, gates and doorways. Janusian thinking is the practice of actively conceiving and using multiple opposing antithetical thoughts simultaneously to solve problems. When we come up against a challenge, obstacle, or problem, our inclination is often to do what? Push against it, right? And pushing creates tension. It creates obstacle. But Janusian thinking suggests rather than finding one solution, we open ourselves up to multiple possibilities or ways of thinking. And it calls us to shift from our limited thinking of a limited perspective of the world to the possibilities we may have never considered before. I'm gonna grab my water. Now, I love binge watching TV shows and watching movies with dualistic protagonists. But it was often different back in the day. If we think back to the earlier days when there were like 3 channels, maybe 5, there were really heroes or villains, right? There was the hero or the villain. People were either good or bad. They were on this side or the other side. And in most cases, the good person always won in the end. But things are more challenging and nuanced today, right? It started with The Sopranos, maybe, and continues today with The Walking Dead. By watching these shows, I get more comfortable learning that polar opposites can exist as part of the whole. In fact, I crave this dynamic in characters. It makes the story so much more rich. Now, Tony Soprano, he had a tender concern for the mother duck and her ducklings in the pool in his backyard. Fed them, make sure they were taken care of. Yet he eviscerated his friend when he was crossed. It's the same person, right? It's the same person that loved his children, that cheated on his wife, that loved his wife and cheated on his wife. Like that people are complicated, right? Did anyone watch the TV show The Americans? It dealt with just a couple who were Russian spies embedded in the United States. Fascinating character story, right? They were dedicated to the communist cause. Why? Because they believed it to be good. But to uphold it, they had to engage in acts that often violently destroyed the lives of individuals in the world. F. Scott Fitzgerald said, the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. We can learn from small children who held two thoughts at once during a 1960s Stanford research project. I'd never heard this before. In this study, nursery school children were brought into a room and a marshmallow was placed in front of them. They were then told that they were going to be left alone with the marshmallow for 15 minutes. If they kept from eating the marshmallow, they would get a second one. But if they ate the marshmallow, there would be no more available to them. As you can imagine, some struggled with this and ate the marshmallow, and some were successful. Yeah, which one are we, right? Years later, researchers continued to follow up on the children from this experiment. Those who did not eat the marshmallow got better grades, had higher SAT scores, and fewer health issues. And as pointed out on the Good Men Project podcast, those children were able to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time. I want to eat the marshmallow now, and I want to eat more marshmallows later. Those who are open to holding two opposing thoughts at once have the ability to then resolve the conflict between the two by generating an entirely new idea that's superior to both. So we are going to be exploring this month this idea of paradoxes in life and the mindset that we have to do our best to co-create a world that works for everyone. By opening ourselves up to alternative solutions, perspectives, beliefs, and ideas, we are not just finding our way into a world where win-win is enough, but rather we are able to strive for win, win, and win on the global. It's when we open up to multiple opposite contradictory ideas being true at the same time that we find these new possibilities. To do that, we must embrace Januszian thinking to begin to solve the problems of the world and to work for a way that works for all people, not just one small group. In the world right now, out picturing, things are pretty intense. I was watching the news today, fascinating what's going on with people with their feet stuck in the ground on one side or the other. But what's the greater truth at the end of that? Something else is seeking to emerge, right? What's necessary for us as human beings, leaders, parents, and friends is to embrace the paradox of life and realize there is no them, it's all us. Think about how this relates to your life, your team, your community, your family, our church. Where can you bring forth some awareness? Where can I bring forth some awareness and acceptance of the paradoxes in life? You know, an ending is also a beginning. Getting a divorce, losing a friend or a job is an opening for something new to come in. We are happier when we can see and appreciate the other side of a struggle and see it as an opportunity. To see the good in the Tony Sopranos of our lives. It helps us to love and accept them for the God presence that they truly are. And finally, if life didn't have seeming opposites, if life didn't have complicated stories, protagonists and antagonists, life would just simply be so damn boring. 1 second here, I got an alert. Can you imagine a movie nowadays without these dynamic tensions that are explored and resolved? I'm not sure it would be a box office success. Think of the roller coaster feeling we get in our gut of watching our heroes show their full authenticity. What's on behind the superhero suit? The good and the bad, and see them come out the other side is somehow more complete than if they had just been perfect the whole time. And that's true of each of us as well. The happy ending for us comes from working through the challenges, all the while knowing that beneath all of this truly is God, and that we, everyone in this room and beyond, are all stuff that's made of the same stuff as the stars. And so we take that into life. We take that into our love today, and we, as best we can, embrace the this and the that of life. Namaste. It's gonna be a fun month, Chris.
Yes.
Lost that. That's okay. All right. Are y'all okay with praying for just a minute? We'll see what comes out. So in this moment, breathe in, if you will. Let it go. Breathe in again. Let it go. Shaking our hands to let the tensions of life go. And I know that in this one place there is the allness of spirit. Some call it God, some call it it. But what I know that the universe is everywhere present. And if that is to be true, then it must embrace what looks this way or that way, that looks up or down, that looks good or bad. And I know that that is the truth of me and each person walking this planet. It's either all or it's not. And so we choose in this moment to let spirit flow, knowing that life is happening full of the protagonists and antagonists in our life. And we can choose fear or faith, or we can step back and observe, or we can experience with our heart how we feel when things look other than perfect. And so I know this to be the truth of those who walk among us with an opportunity for healing, with a feeling that doesn't look like perfection. I know this is true for those of us who walk with anything missing in their lives. I know this is true for me when I think, gosh, I could have done better right now. But instead, what I know is that it is all indeed perfect. That the one life of God that's having its way and experience using these body temples that we walk this planet with, that it has and offers a place of perfection, a place untouched by human experience, and a place where there is only one. And so as we move to this place of acceptance, and knowing that we can boldly move into being fully and authentically ourselves, while that person next to us can be fully and perfectly authentically themselves, and that together we create this rainbow myriad of things we call life. And so it is that I give thanks for the knowing of this truth. I give thanks for this willingness to embrace the paradox in life, to be able to hold two thoughts at the same time that seem to be different, but they're not, because they can't be. They are one. And so let's move into this month playfully experimenting with this paradox and what it means in our lives. And I'm grateful for that willingness to be and express. And I let this prayer go, shaking it out into the law of life that says, yes, we are one. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you all. Let's talk.
Thank you.
We lost our feed here. Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, you're just not recording.
Thank you. You came through, Dolores.